So first, welcome again, welcome everyone, all 25 participants that are currently looking at us and listening. I hope that everything is fine with technology. I hope that you are all doing well and healthy. And today we will be discussing about food and beverage changes during the COVID pandemic, what will stay and what will go. Today our speakers are mostly professional and wonderful. We have three. That one of them is Augustin Cesljic. He's a F&B director in Meridien Lab. So please, Augustin, you can wave. Then we have Semeja. He's a general manager at Adria from Slovenia. And we have Martin B. Jones, Chief Disruption Officer, Captivate Hospitality Partners. And myself, I'm Anna. So as you saw, and as Andrea said, any questions that you have, you can ask us at the session chat next to the screen that you see. Please do not send direct messages because we are currently not looking at that part. If you have any questions that we won't be able to discuss during the panel, after the panel ends, we can discuss them later on. So as we saw, this year was quite difficult and strange one for the entire hospitality sector, especially for the food and beverage sector, which is still undergoing changes and some of the adaptations. So today we will be talking about things that will stay and that will go. So my first question goes to Augustin. What are the changes that you have implemented in your hotel and during this pandemic? So what were actually the changes and how did they respond to the current situation?
So basically we needed to rethink every single aspect of our operations, and the COVID pandemic, in my opinion, speeded up certain projects we had in pipeline, such as having some new technologies and having some I like to call them some plans to make the guests who are coming feel more convenient. So by implementing these technologies, we make sure that we provide convenience at the first for the guests. So now this COVID only speeded up in all these projects we have in pipeline. What without pandemic for sure would come sooner or later on our table, but now we needed to implement them as quick as possible.
What were the key implementations or changes that you put into the work session? So what were the main processes that you were doing during every day that shifted the perspective on the F&B sector for the guests and for the labor?
So basically we worked first on safety. So we implemented sanitation stations and processes which will make our employees and guests feel safe. So this includes many digital technologies such as e-menus, table booking and management platforms, QR codes all over the place with the different informations related to the hotel and F&B itself. Also touchless sanitation stations and
buffet.
Stuff
Was
like
there
that.
any buffet, Swedish buffet?
So buffets we didn't do. We served a la carte breakfast as well as lunch and dinner. But the biggest change was in the breakfast. So obviously our facility was not built to facilitate safe buffet operations. So we switched that to a la carte, which end of the day proven excellent results in terms of guest satisfaction, because they didn't need to queue in next station, they didn't need to queue with other people in bread station and so on. So we made it more convenient for them. We were serving them and asking them what they want. Although we had more employees for that we needed, but end of the day we had significant savings in terms of food cost, because there were no wastage as normally every buffet does have.
Thank you. So, Mr. Alex,
Welcome.
looking at the other perspective from a general manager from a hotel. So we have three segments here. What is your stance on it, and how did it all the changes that you implemented in your hotel influence the general operation profit? So did you have big losses? Was the revenue bigger, lesser this year? Were employees more satisfied? Were guests satisfied or dissatisfied? So what was your perspective on the pandemic situation in your hotel?
Okay, let me put this first into a big perspective. Then I will talk about F&B. This year, oh my gosh, it was a bumpy ride. We started the year strong with approximately 30% above the January and February levels of the 2019. Then came the first lockdown, and we lost all the reservations for the high season. We were unable to operate for approximately 3 months due to the government restrictions which was imposed by the government. But since we didn't know how long the lockdown will last, we still continued with all the investments, all the marketing and everything. And this proved to be a right decision, because once we were able to operate, we started our business the very first day that we were allowed to. In the high season, it comes roaring to us. It goes from 25 to 95% occupancy in a matter of 10 days. So being an early starter, we were able to absorb this immense request for our facilities. We didn't speculate, we went all in, as we say. So right now we are again closed, but the high season, the summer season, was extremely well for us. We managed to make up for all the losses for the first 6 months. So we have a very good year actually at the end of the day. What was happening in F&B segment? We took a long, honest look at our businesses and decide what is our core business and what is just a portfolio business for us, and where the added value is really generated. So we find out that under these restrictions that we have and these requirements that were set by the government, my segment was actually, we were unable to fulfill the requests and still make money. So we canceled actually all the mice, we canceled all the weddings, all the picnic and so on and so on. And instead we focused on, so to say, hybrid buffet table, which was a regular buffet table. We put it behind glass, and then we put our employees, you point it and we served you. So you still have a buffet table, but it was behind the glass and it was safe, and our employees were serving you from the table. So and we focused on takeaway. I don't know how it's in Croatia, but in Slovenia there was very strict rules on how much space should be between tables, and this significantly reduced the capacity of our bars, restaurants, and so on and so on. So we upgraded the takeaway not only to room service but to the resort service as well. So we also serve in the camping site, in the apartments, as we would serve in the hotel room. So this was mainly focusing on the core business.
So there are a lot of changes that each state tries to implement as the legislation goes. Every state has different law orders. So Mr. Martin, since you are no longer in the operation hotel segment, you are more abroad with your partners. How was your perspective on the changes that each and every state had to put in? So for example, you're in Australia. There's an information that Spain is under lockdown until May 2021, which is a long time. As well in Australia, maybe you're a bit constricted, you cannot travel. So what is your insight on the changes regarding your partners? So your view on this situation?
Okay, thanks. The interesting thing is, and my two colleagues here, they're both operational now, and I have been for many years. But for the last nearly 15 years, I've been in a corporate role. So I look at things from a broader perspective, of course. And what was really interesting in the last few months, interesting and also very sad, of course, because our industry has really suffered. There's been so many changes, so much loss of business in general. I mean, I have to say it's great to hear that Alice had a great year and beat last year even, and that Augustin has done very well. So it's always good to have some good stories, and I think we need those in these days. But the main thing that I've seen across the board, and I've been talking on a lot of panels, whether it's in the UK, in Asia, some in the Middle East, and listening to the feedback of people, is that there is no common ground. There's no consistency. We're all in trouble. There's no doubt about it. It's a bad situation, and I think because of lack of probably education or knowledge, and perhaps a little bit excessive media and things, we really are in a sad situation. But across the world, it's different, and you'll see now that Asia is already starting to recover. I've got colleagues in China, and they said that a lot of things. Somebody went to an event the other day, a wedding for 1,000 people. So your question around what will stay and what will go it's very location driven, I think. We've been talking about the buffet, and there was a lot of talk that, oh my God, we can't have buffets anymore. Personally, I don't think that will be the case. I think it will be driven by the location and the consumer. And again, we had a chat on this the other day. The nature of the human is that they like variety, that they like the visual. And what I do think is that certainly things will change, and our attitude and our approach has to change, and we have to be a lot more careful, of course. But what we'll have to do is, we still have to please our customers, because somebody will do it. And I think as far as the buffet is concerned, I don't think it will go away. What I do think is great that Augustin has got rid of his, and I'm very pleased with that, because with the company that I've just created, Captivate Partners, with my partners, one of our focuses, the main focus, is putting the planet first. So really being sustainable, looking into energy, looking into waste reduction. So to hear that from Augustin, that that there's a reduction in food waste, is fantastic. So that's the good thing, and they're the things that should stay. But I think what we have to do is adapt and do things just a little bit differently. Be conscious of safety. Look into what we were doing that perhaps contradicts what we've experienced in the last few months. But I do think that things won't just go away, they won't stop, but we just have to be sensible and adapt accordingly, in general, I think. But there's no consistent. Across the world, it's very different everywhere.
The same goes not only in the world, but in the hotels. Each company has their own ways of dealing with things, even though the legislation gives you some points what you have to take in. But every hotel company or hotel or manager likes to do things their way. We have one interesting question that I would like to connect with the food wastage and with the cost of breakfast. So the premise is that if you don't have a Swedish table, a buffet, that guests in general will eat less, because they have to, take one thing per time, or the server needs to serve them things. So do you think, because of that the offer should be more versatile than it was before, because everybody can pick one thing that they want? And will it increase the consumption per guest, even though it's no longer buffet, and even the cost? So Augustin, maybe from your perspective, did the cost of breakfast in your hotel still stay the same, or did it increase or decrease because of the lesser, lesser demand, should we say?
Well, the overall cost of the breakfast significantly decreased, because of no wastage, but also we ensured that we had good variety available. So we did not compromise on the quality and the selection. We even increased and made our selection more premium and more luxurious, because they were single servings and people did not take much. So quality of croissant, different specialty egg selections were made, and so on. So we could afford a little bit more luxury into into the breakfast,
You
but with a lower cost.
we talked before, as we were talking in the previous session, that you managed to serve 700, which is an important information, 700 a la carte breakfasts each morning.
Yeah.
So, which is quite impressive, which would of course include more labor. Yeah, that's really, really impressive, Augustin. Which would include more labor and labor costs. So would you say that with the decreasing of food wastage of the breakfast costs, you managed to pay off the extra labor? Would that be, for example, maybe an encouragement to other listeners who are maybe
so just to explain it in more simple words. So what we have done, we have put our breakfast completely a la carte with certain items preset, such as it looks like an afternoon tea with certain things preset, selection of cold cuts and cheeses, bread rolls, croissant, and the spreads. And then we were asking for the eggs for additional, for some additional specialty items, coffee and juices, a la carte. So basically, we needed 20 people more than we had year before, but we paid the labor with what we saved in terms of food cost. But at the same time, we achieved better guest satisfaction. So our guest satisfaction was better than ever with this. So
it seems like you had the perfect outcome, I would say. Lesser costs, more satisfaction. I will then just go to Mr. Aleš. When we talk about guest satisfaction and as well employee satisfaction, we always as managers try to put those things in perspective. You know, the more satisfied employee, so goes with the guests. How was your point of view on the guests? Did the ratings decrease or increase this year during the pandemic?
Look, this at the start, remember, this initially was not an economic crisis. It was a crisis of trust, of fear, imposed by this epidemic. So safety and quality were our priority. We should do everything we can to ensure a safe environment, both for our employees and for our guests. But then comes a very, very important point. You should communicate this. I can't stress this one enough. It's one of the biggest priorities. Communicate with your guests what you have done in order for them to be safe. Then communicate with your employees, with your co-workers. What have you done? Which measures in order to be safe? So not only do they feel safe, they know they are safe. They act differently if they know what measures have been taken and why, and what will this bring. I must say that I am very proud of my team. Put in account, bear in mind that we have about 180,000 overnight stays, plus 100,000 daily visitors in the high season, and not a single infection among our employees. So I think that's a great effort. We did something very, very good. Maybe I had a little bit of advantage here. In my former career, I was a general manager of a health resort, which was part hospital, part hotel. And we did a serious medical procedures there. So this infection prevention system, it's not something that was really new to me or to my team. So maybe we were not afraid. We should never be afraid, but we should worry about it. So, and take measures in order to, but once again, communicate this with your employees and communicate this with your guests. Also, if they feel safe and you know everything you have done for them to be safe, they are also willing to pay for this. If they do not know what you have done, then you cannot charge it. And then only the cost goes up, not the revenue. So I think that this is very important.
That is a really good subject on which we will come back to. Please do not forget that insight. But I have a question for Mr. Martin. When we're talking about, for example, sustainability and, of course, trust and food wastage, one of the most important things in food and beverage sector this year was the touchless technology. So each and every object, hotel, there were some technologies that they had to implement because of the legislations. But when you're thinking up ahead in future, some of the things or technologies should stay. What is your opinion about the touchless technology, of course, and what do you see pro the technology? What are the benefits of it, let's say?
Yeah, I think it was inevitable anyway. I mean, the world is becoming a tech world, right? I mean, in every way, in every form. And I guess this has probably accelerated it in many occasions. I think probably one of the main things was with the QR codes on the menus. This has offered the opportunity for people to because let's face it, everybody has a telephone pretty much, right? So it's easy to use. And and if you're smart with it and you have it, let's say, for instance, in Croatia, not everybody that visits will speak Croatian, so you've got to offer in other languages. So if you do this smart, it will take it to your advantage and have it automatically translated or possibly into any language, depending on the system that you use. That's a great advantage for you. And then make it work for you and let it help you to upsell as well. So there are great advantages in that. We talked when we did our little pre-chat as well, but the human touch is still important. But that's the business we're in, right? We're in a people business. So we still have to have some human interaction. There's no doubt about it. And I think that's very important. That's what it's all about. But other things, the company that some of my ex-colleagues have created called Saba, S-A-B-A, and they have solutions for touchless contact and ordering and everything right throughout your hotel. So there's some great things that are coming out. The good thing is, I think that people are becoming less afraid of it, more aware of it. I remember years ago when everybody wanted an iPad, right? And instead of a menu, you get an iPad, which in a way was an idea, but then you still have to touch the iPad and it wasn't yours and it was somebody else's. So I guess things have advanced a lot. And I think the other good thing that's come out of this, when you talk to this, I mean, look, for instance, one of your partners, your sponsors here, Nectar, they have touchless juice dispensers, which is a great thing. First of all, they look great anyway, and the product's good, it has to be. But, you know, the fact that they thought about it and they're always looking for something new, which a lot of other companies are doing as well. I think that is a great thing that's come out of this. So, yes, technology is... We can't let it overtake us. We've got to manage it. And we can't become totally, I won't say contactless, but the people still have to be there. And we have to remember that we like to be with other people and we like service. And so it's important for the people that are looking at this, don't think it's, pardon the pun, hands off and we don't have to do anything, because we still do. And I think it's really important, but use it to your benefit. And, you know, it's becoming a global thing. If you think about it, a lot of Chinese travelers, and hopefully that will come back, then, you know, they can use the system as well. So I think there's a lot of good things coming out of this. And I've seen it through many different industries, manufacturers and all sorts of things, where they're trying to make things sanitary. Even there's materials now that they're putting on tables, on meeting tables, on other tables that have the ability to clean. So it really is sanitizing as well. I mean, spraying a little spray and wiping the table is not sanitization, right? So there's a lot more to it. And of course, we've realized now that health and safety is such an important part of the way we do business. I think it always was, but it's even more important now. And I think what Aleš said was, tell the guests, communicate that you are doing something, and they do appreciate it. And again, going back to what you are going to talk about, people will pay to know that they're safe.
Of course, yeah. So this is one question that goes to all three of you. So you can all answer individually in short answers. A lot of general managers or owners of restaurants and hotels are currently in between decisions of making those investments, as investing in touchless technologies, in, you know, wonderful pieces, which if you have touchless, it needs to be representative, you know, it cannot be just a simple thing. And then they're stuck between the finances, because the revenue this year wasn't as high as they maybe expected, or in some cases, as we see with our panelists, it was even better than last year. So would you encourage them to this year to take that step to prepare for next year with touchless technology? Because as you, Mr. Martin, said, the trends are going forward. We will never go back to as it was. Tourism and hospitality will never be as it was, which is not necessarily a bad thing. So would you encourage them and tell them, okay, do it, invest if you have the finances, or would you tell them to wait? So we can start with Augustin. What would you say?
So absolutely, as I mentioned earlier, these technologies would have come to our venues sooner or later, and it's not because of Corona that we are inventing this. It's all because of the guest convenience. So whenever we are budgeting something, whenever we are planning to implement something, buy something, let's not think it's because of Corona. It's because of
the trends, the new trends.
Because of the trends and convenience of the guests. And Martin mentioned also upselling opportunities are always there. And I'm truly convinced that investing in these technologies can only create new opportunities.
Wonderful. Mr. Ales?
Yeah, I agree. I think that tourism has a lot of potential in the fields of the digitalization, not only in the reservation department and property management, but also in F&B. We also use this Nectar Natura touchless technology, and for the next year we are upgrading it to the beverage management complete. So there's also what you use in terms to ensure safety, you can also use in terms of budgeting, of cost control, and so on and so on. So I think that this step should be done ASAP. And I also think that we are now in the lockdown here, but we are doing all the investments for the next year, and we are preparing for the next high season because it will come.
It will come, yeah.
Be prepared.
Good for you. Everybody should be prepared. And Mr. Martin, your opinion?
Yeah, I think you got to be sensible. Like I said, technology is part of life. Just make sure it's right for your business and you make it work for you, what you choose. The issue, of course, is that it's changing all the time. So it is important to consider what you can afford and make sure that you're investing in the right technology at the right time, because things will change. There'll be other things coming. There's a lot of things that we found out now that we didn't know about before, but it is, and it's progress, right? All I would say is don't sacrifice service and don't sacrifice the personal side of our business, because it's important, you know, and we need the people, and the people need jobs now too. So let's not, I don't think we want to get necessarily into robots and go that far, but embrace technology and use the systems. And again, like we said before, you know, make sure that they are working for you, that you choose a system and it does allow you to upsell or sell in a different way. But ultimately, you've got to get a return on investment, and that's important for you and for the owners as well.
Well, you just said a wonderful thesis. I would like to say that hospitality without human contact is just another word in a dictionary. So, of course, we should encourage people to invest in their businesses. So don't be afraid of doing that, because the changes will eventually come and you would have to adapt. So better do it now when the world is moving slower.
Sure.
And then be safer, like Mr. Ales said, be prepared for next season. And Mr. Ales, you had a very interesting thing. You were talking about room service, which we mentioned in a previous session. So some have decided that this year, regarding the pandemic, they will remove completely the cost of room service as, you know, service. And you were pro, like, let's keep the prices, let's explain what we are doing, let's upsell. So could you just explain your point of view? How did you manage to keep the room service cost still the same and manage to keep guest satisfaction?
Well, because this was offered to our guests in the way that this is something that we do for them in order to be safer or to feel safe. We communicated that this is an extra service, how we prepare it, and this is why we can also charge it. You know, it's not a problem of our hotel or your hotel, it's a worldwide problem. And we are solving some issue, and of course we can charge for it. I don't see any problems with that. And people were glad, because we offered really good takeaway or room service or resort service and so on. So they were very satisfied and grateful, because they We also have a capacity of restaurant. It's about 600 to 800 breakfasts or dinners and so on. So if somebody came to our restaurant and saw 200 people and didn't feel comfortable, we immediately offered, would you like it to be served in your room? Oh yeah, great. No question asked, of course he paid the extra, and he was glad he had the opportunity to do it. And we have done a good service of it, and I don't see a problem why we shouldn't be charged.
Okay, so that is another encouragement for our colleagues that are listening. Do not decrease, don't lower your prices. Just keep the standard.
Increase the value.
Yes, and revalue them and explain to your guests what are you giving them extra in exchange for that money. One question again for all. We have 4 more minutes, so we will not delay. Do you think that the situation regarding the masks that everybody had to wear from the employees, personnel, the gloves and everything, do you think that it affected the entire feeling of hospitality in food and beverage? Because that is very important when you come to a restaurant or when you come to reception or wherever, but especially in restaurant. And when a waiter has to come approach you and ask you, hello, what would you like to drink? And when somebody asks you, hello, what would you like to drink? Did it change the way how people feel about food and beverage, or has it still, do we still have that feeling? So, Mr. Augustin, in perspective of your employees, do they come to you and tell you, oh, I can't take this anymore, it's too hot, I can't breathe? Or are they encouraged?
Well, in the beginning, it was a bit challenging for everybody. I think by now everybody's got too used to it already. My personal opinion, I don't like it, but I observed that many guests like that. So I'm not sure if this will stay for the future or not, but whatever will be the decisions, I'm sure everybody will adapt in the most positive way possible.
Okay, Mr. Alish?
Well, you can also smile with your eyes, that, even if you're wearing a mask. We talk a lot, we take a lot of effort to communicate with our employees, and we told them that it is for their safety, not for the guest safety, but also for their safety. So if they are ignorant enough not to wear masks and then bring home a disease or infection, they should think about it and actually work. Also, in the beginning, I made a little forecast. I told them that the guests will complain if our police won't wear masks, and exactly what happened. So at the end of the day, we didn't have a problem with it, and they took it as their own personal safety measure in order to be safe in the environment. So,
Mr. Martin?
There's no question about it. It's the right thing to do, right? And I was going to say exactly the same thing. Smile with your eyes, right? Because they can. And, there's many other ways you can make a guest feel comfortable, but at the end of the day, it is simply the right thing to do. And we've got to protect ourselves and protect others. Make sure you wash the mask and make sure you'll throw the disposable one away as well, because that makes a difference as well. But it's the way it is. So get over it, guys. It's part of the way that we live right now. Will it change? We don't know. No one has a crystal ball. But whilst it doesn't change, embrace it. And everybody's doing the same thing. So there shouldn't be any discussion about it.
Perfect. I love this conclusion. And personally, when we take this panel into a small, consideration, the most important things that we learned and said today is continue to grow your businesses, keep investing in touchless technologies. It will never go away. It's just going to be coming more and more faster. Keep your masks on. Do not, don't let the guests and employees see that you're maybe pathetic with it, because it's the right thing to do. And we should all promote health and safety, which is actually that. Masks represent that. So the change is
and don't forget the planet as well. Don't start using plastic because you can throw it away, because it's the wrong way to go. We have to keep sustainable too.
Perfect. As you saw, Mr. Augustin and Mr. Alish in the operations, they found ways how to lessen the food wastage, how to decrease costs and everything. So there is always a way. In every situation, you can find something positive. And we encourage everybody to do that. All our 62 guests that are currently looking at our panel. So we've sadly finished with the discussion. but we still have time enough to answer some of the questions. We've already answered a question from Mr. Ivan Kovacev, which was the question about the average consumption on food and beverage per guest, which actually the conclusion was that it decreased, which is actually wonderful. So we will stay here for another 10-15 seconds if anybody has any questions. Maybe some last words for everybody while we're waiting.
I just have a question or a comment on the serving at the table, because I think what Augustin did is a great thing. But there's also a danger, and I don't know if you did it. You ask the guest if they want or what they want on the stand, because it could increase, and it's an individual situation. You put a stand on everybody's table and that person didn't want cheese, they didn't want ham or whatever it is, do you throw it away or do you ask in advance? Because I think if people think, everybody listening thinks, oh, that's a great idea, and you could over provide as well, and that could cause food wastage and increase costs. So I think I don't know if that was part of the process, but I think it should be.
Yeah, it was well assessed. We preset things what 80% of the people consume.
Right. And I would also just like to say that, we're all in the same industry. One thing that this pandemic has done, I believe, is that made us all realize that we are a great industry. Hospitality is fantastic. Food and beverage, of course, is the fun part of hospitality. And I think there's been a lot of support over the last few months, which has been great to see. We have created a food and beverage support forum on LinkedIn that anybody is welcome to join as well. And it's simply called Food and Beverage Support Forum. And it's a platform where you can ask questions or you can contribute if you've got ideas. So if, Augustin, your case study about you did that would be a great thing to put together and post on the Food and Beverage Support Forum. But,
Sure.
We're all in this situation together. There's thousands and thousands of people that have lost their jobs. And I just pray that, we start things turn around. I know they will, but we have a great industry. And even doing this, I think, is a super initiative. And I'm very appreciative to have been invited on this panel as well.
And we are very thankful that you all joined. We have a comment from one of our viewers. Mr. Dragan wrote, in Germany are very fashionable see-through plastic masks. It brings protection and offers smile that is crucial in hospitality business. Yes, yep. The positive side is the mask that you can see somebody smile, but the negative is the plastic, Mr. Dragan.
Yes, and also, you've got to breathe while you're wearing it. If you breathe, it's messy, you can see it. But I agree. When I first saw it in Belgium at a very nice restaurant, and I was impressed with it too. But I guess the key is also maintain it, keep it clean and all that as well. But yeah, it is nice. But I'm sure they can make it out of something other than plastic, and I'm sure Dragan and Gaurav can maybe have a think about that in their research, right? So come up with something.
Maybe Mr. Augustin and Aleš will be innovators of something new while working with their employees, trying to find a better way without just smiling with your eyes, which is also a wonderful way.
Maybe it's worth mentioning that in this crisis, you really need to get the management involved in it. Not only the top management, but also the heads of the department. The time pressure is so intense now because every day, every week, there is something new measures, new restrictions, new ways how to do it, and the managers have to be there. How many days did the Croatian tourism have this year? Maybe 100. So if you lose a day, you lose 1%. You lose 2 weeks, you lose 15%. You're out. So you have to be there. You have to be there for your people and really implement these changes because they are virtually happening every day. So I think that this is also important to stress and of course never give up. It won't be the end of the world. We will try to this, and I think that we should expand it.
Great. Thank you all for participating. I hope you had